Try to remember the last time your child heard you and your spouse pray together. Not over a meal. Not a quick blessing before food gets cold. Actually pray together, out loud, in the same room, about something real, something that was actually pressing on your family, something that required God. Try to remember it. The day, the moment, the words. If you are searching and coming up empty, if the last time is further back than you can place, something in you already knows this video is for you, not because your marriage is in trouble, not because your faith has gone cold, but because somewhere between the schedules and the exhaustion and the 1,000 demands that fill a household, the prayers you used to pray together became the prayers you now pray alone. And it happened so gradually that there was never a moment where you decided to stop. You just did, and the house kept moving, and nobody said anything, including your child. But your child noticed. They always notice. What if the disappearance of shared prayer in your home is not just a spiritual discipline you fell out of? What if it is a lesson your child is actively receiving right now? Not a lesson you are teaching with words, a lesson they are reading from the atmosphere, from the silence where something used to be. And what if what they are concluding from that silence is shaping their theology of marriage, of God, and of what faith looks like when life gets hard? By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what your child is learning from the absence of shared prayer in your home. And you will have the biblical framework to understand why this particular silence carries more weight than almost any other. Because children do not only learn from what is present at home, they learn from what used to be present and is no longer. The disappearance of something teaches its own lesson, and that lesson is already being written. Matthew 18:19 and 20. Jesus says, "If two of you on earth agree about anything they ask for, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them." That verse is quoted most often in the context of corporate worship or church gatherings. But read it again. 2 of you on earth agreeing, there am I with them. Jesus was not describing a crowd. He was describing proximity, agreement. 2 people turning toward God together. The promise attached to that act is not small. It is the presence of Christ himself in the room, which means when a household carries 2 people who once prayed together and no longer do, the child living in that house is not just missing a tradition. They are growing up in a home where a specific form of the presence of Christ is quietly vacated, not because God left, because the agreement that invited him into that particular space stopped being made. 2 couples, both Christian, both love God and love their children and mean every word of the faith they profess. The first couple prayed together early in their marriage. Before children, it was natural, intimate, easy. Then the first baby arrived and the rhythm broke. Then the second child came and the exhaustion compounded. Then work pressure built and unresolved tension started living quietly between them, and praying together suddenly felt complicated, vulnerable in a way it hadn't before, like it required a closeness they were not sure they still had access to. So they prayed separately, both of them, faithfully, alone. And the house still had faith in it, but their children grew up watching 2 people who believed in God privately, never together, never out loud, never in a way that required one of them to reach toward the other and toward God in the same moment. The second couple lost the same rhythm, recognized the same drift, and made a decision that was not romantic or easy or natural anymore. They decided to pray together anyway, not because it felt close, because they remembered that their child was watching, because they understood that the act of praying together was not just about what God heard, it was about what their child saw. 2 people who do not agree on everything, who are tired, who are imperfect, choosing to bring their family before God together. That child is growing up with something the first couple's children are not, a living picture of what faith looks like inside a real marriage. Same love, same exhaustion, completely different formation. And the child in each home is already drawing conclusions. 4 silent lessons, all absorbed by children in homes where shared prayer has gone quiet. All formation happening without a single word being spoken about it. The first silent lesson, faith is a private matter. When a child only ever witnesses solo prayer, parent in their room, door closed, faith kept internal, they absorb a definition. Faith is between you and God. It is personal. It does not require anyone else. It does not get spoken out loud in the presence of another person. That definition feels humble. It even sounds biblical in a certain light, but it is missing something foundational. Because the entire covenant structure of Scripture is relational. God did not design faith to be lived alone. He designed it to be practiced in community, in covenant, in the presence of other believers. And the first community a child is given is their family. Ecclesiastes 4:12 says, "A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken." The image is not of one strong strand. It is of 3 interwoven. The strength is in the joining. When children never witness their parents joining their faith together, never see the cord being braided in real time, they grow up believing that spiritual strength is something you build alone. And the child who grows up believing faith is private will enter marriage one day and not know how to pray with their spouse. Because no one ever showed them what that looks like. Because in the home they grew up in, it was always a closed door. The reframe private prayer is necessary, but it was never meant to be the only kind. And this is where it gets generational. The second silent lesson, God is for crisis, not for ordinary life. In many homes where shared prayer has faded, it only reappears under pressure, a serious diagnosis, a financial emergency, a family crisis that is too large to hold alone. And suddenly the parents are praying together again. The child sees it, feels the weight of it, and without meaning to, files away the following conclusion. Prayer is what you do when everything else has failed. God is the last resort. You bring him in when the ordinary tools run out. 1 Thessalonians 5:17 gives one of the shortest commands in all of Scripture. 3 words. Pray without ceasing. Not pray when desperate. Not pray when crisis arrives. Without ceasing. The vision of prayer in the New Testament is not emergency access. It is constant communion. A family that only prays together when things are falling apart is teaching its children that God is a rescue service, not a father. And the child who grows up believing God is a rescue service will not develop the habit of daily communion with him. They will develop the habit of calling on him when they are out of options, which is a faith that will be chronically too late for the life they are trying to build. The reframe. Let your child hear you pray together about small things, ordinary things, Tuesday things. That is what teaches them that God inhabits daily life, not just emergencies. The third silent lesson, marriage does not require God in the middle of it. This one lands differently, because it is not just about prayer. It is about what a child understands a covenant to be. When 2 people who made their vows before God stop inviting God into the daily fabric of their life together, stop speaking to him together, stop agreeing together in his name, they are modeling a marriage that functions without its foundation being actively acknowledged. The structure may still be standing, but the child can feel the difference between a home where God is present in theory and a home where he is present in practice. Deuteronomy 6:6 and 7 instructs parents to let God's commandments be on their hearts and to impress them on their children in every moment of ordinary life. Sitting, walking, lying down, rising. The texture of God was meant to run through the entire day of a family, not just the Sunday portion, not just the crisis moments, the whole day. A child who grows up watching their parents live out their marriage without visible dependence on God does not automatically reject faith, but they do absorb a template. And that template says, I can love someone, build a life with someone, raise children with someone, and keep God in a separate compartment from the relationship itself. That template will follow them to the altar. Stay with this, because the fourth silent lesson is the one that does the deepest damage. Because it does not touch the child's theology of marriage or prayer, it touches their theology of themselves. The fourth silent lesson, you are not worth being prayed over together. This is what no parent intends, and it is what lands anyway. Children are extraordinarily perceptive about what their parents treat as important. They watch what gets time, what gets energy, what gets protection. And when a child grows up in a home where their parents once prayed together and no longer do, where the thing that was practiced before they arrived quietly ended after, the child's internal logic runs a calculation. The conclusion it sometimes reaches is not rational, but it is felt. If my parents stopped doing the most important spiritual thing they can do as a couple, if God is no longer something they bring to each other, what does that mean about the home I live in? About whether this family is covered? About whether I am being prayed for by both of them together? Numbers 6:24-26, the Aaronic blessing. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. That blessing was not spoken silently. It was declared out loud over God's people, together, by appointed voices. A child who hears their parents pray together over their family even imperfectly, even briefly. Receive something that cannot be replicated by any other means. They receive the experience of being covered, of being prayed over by the two people God placed closest to them. That experience becomes an anchor, and the child who never has it will spend a long time looking for it in other places. There is a woman in Scripture whose story of prayerlessness nearly cost her everything she was promised. Her name is Rebecca. She was the wife of Isaac. And when she felt the struggle of the twin sons in her womb, when something was clearly happening that she could not understand, she did what was right. She went to inquire of the Lord. Genesis 25:22. She sought God. That is not the failure. The failure is what is conspicuously absent from that verse. Isaac is not mentioned. He did not go with her. He did not pray with her over the sons they were carrying together into the world. The parenting of Jacob and Esau began in a home where the mother carried her questions to God and the father did not join her. And those two sons, shaped in a home where prayer was maternal and not shared, grew into men at the center of one of Scripture's most devastating family fractures: deception, estrangement, a blessing stolen, a wound that ran for generations. This is still happening in faithful homes, in homes where both parents believe, where both parents pray, just not together. And the children growing up in those homes are receiving a formation that no one planned and no one announced. It is simply happening. In the silence where the shared prayer used to be, you did not stop praying together because you stopped loving God, or because you stopped loving each other. You stopped because life compressed the space where it used to happen, because it required a vulnerability you were not always sure you could sustain, because praying together means being honest together in front of God, and sometimes that felt like more than the moment could hold. That is not weakness. That is the reality of building a life with another human being while both of you are still being sanctified. But your child does not know why the prayers stopped. They only know that they did, and they are living inside the conclusion of that silence every day. The way back is not complicated. It is uncomfortable. There is a difference. Complicated means you need more resources. Uncomfortable means you need more courage. You already have everything required to pray together tonight. You have a voice. You have a spouse. You have a child in the next room who cannot hear what you have not yet said. And you have a God who promised that where two agree, He is already there. Not eventually there. Already. Malachi 2:15 asks, "Has not the one God made you? You belong to Him in body and spirit. And what does the one God seek? Godly offspring." What God is seeking from a covenant marriage is not perfection. It is not a flawless spiritual record. He is seeking the next generation. He is looking at your home and looking past you to the child being formed inside it. And He is asking whether the two of you are going to give that child the experience of a family that prays together, that seeks Him together, that lets the child see what it looks like to need God as a unit and not just as individuals. That starts tonight. Not with a long prayer, not with a formal ceremony of restoration, with 2 sentences spoken toward God with your spouse beside you. That is all it takes to begin rewriting what your child is learning from the silence, if you are ready to end the silence. If you are ready to give your child the experience of a home that prays together again, go to the comments right now and type, "We will pray together again." That is not just a comment. That is a covenant, spoken out loud, where God can hear it, and where the generation watching you already is. And if a couple came to mind while you watched this, a family where the shared prayer has gone quiet and nobody has named it, send this to them today, not someday, today, because the children in their home are already learning the lesson. And the only thing that changes it is the moment someone decides to start speaking again.